Live. Everywhere. On netrootsradio.com. David Waldman. Kagro. In the morning. Now, here's David Waldman.
Hey, good morning, everybody. How you doing? It is Monday, December 23rd, 2024. Time for another show. Time for, putting up a nativity scene on public property, I guess. It's about that time. Almost Christmas Eve, I guess, if we're looking for something to peg this to. It's December 23rd. I don't know. I guess they're charging the electric Santa sleigh at this point, maybe whatever it is that you would do in preparation for this stuff. And we have to figure out what our schedule is going to be for this week. Wednesday, of course, is Christmas, and I don't know. What are you going to do about that? It's a birthday party, and not everybody's invited, apparently, by the way, but we're all supposed to be merry anyway. Then Boxing Day. Got to get out of the way of Boxing Day. And, of course, Hanukkah, oddly enough, I guess first night of Hanukkah falls on Christmas, not Eve, but Christmas night. So that should be fun for lots of people to do some cross-cultural experimentation. And why not? A little cultural appropriation never hurt anyone, I think. I don't know, unless it's actually a huge problem. Anyway, lots to catch up on, much happening as usual, and not really sure how many times we're going to get on the air and discuss it this week. Could be a bit of a short week. Wednesday, traditionally, I assume people, they're busy at least. I don't know. I'm not going to be doing all that much. My kids, to the extent that there's any excitement about Christmas morning here, and there is, well, not about the morning. It's been a long time since they were excited about anything morning. So, I don't know. I mean, I guess I could sneak a show in, but would anybody be listening is the next question. And on Boxing Day, I got to go boxing. So, I don't know. I think I might be out and visiting people who are recovering from Christmas and or preparing for a fun Boxing Day or enjoying the fruits of their Boxing Day morning on Thursday. So I'm not real sure what we are going to be able to pull off this week. And not a whole lot of time around to be sitting around and recording shows with lots of probably baking activity happening in the background as well. But we did it through Thanksgiving. I don't know. We'll figure it out. It's not like there's anything going on anyway. Is there really? All right. Let's see. Big news for today, both political and non-political, but everything is political, as you know. I guess the big headline that people are talking about this morning, the Matt Gaetz Ethics Committee report, or some version of it, is out. He swears revenge, but he's changed his plans a couple times about what the revenge is going to be. And guess what? The committee thinks he did all the things that we all think that he did. And apparently, it's a rather detailed report, and it's a little gross, and it might not be morning, fair. But like I said, we all had a pretty good idea of what it was that the committee thought he had done. Why they didn't just come out and say, I guess legally they're not allowed to come out and say we found that he did it because they're not a court. And of course, I guess now we've got questions about what were the technicalities, I assume it was technicalities, that got in the way of prosecuting him for these crimes, because that was a declination by the Department of Justice to do that. And then, of course, probably want to keep in the background, in the back of your mind somewhere, that the guy that the ethics committee says they did all these horrible things was supposed to be the attorney general, according to Trump. Now, of course, it'll be Pam Bondi, who's not, I don't think, directly accused of doing any of those horrible things, but for whatever reason was on the record before he dropped out and she got the nomination, on the record in support of Gaetz as attorney general. And, I assume that because, of course, a lot of this activity was happening in Florida, and was happening in Florida while he was a state representative as well. It's pretty well known, I think, in the capital city there, and Pam Bondi had to have heard from the rest of the people what Gaetz was up to. For all I know, Gaetz showed her pictures and told her directly. Anyway, so that seems weird, and people ought to be held to account for that. Now, I guess one other note on the Gaetz thing, just to throw it in there. A couple of days ago, he actually revived the idea, or maybe it was the first time he spoke about it, but he actually acknowledged that, yes, I do have a certificate of election to the 119th Congress floating out there. I resigned from the 118th Congress in order to avoid this report being issued, but apparently it was issued anyway. And so he leveraged that fact to threaten to show up on January 3rd on the House floor, claim his certificate of election, take the oath of office, and then use his privileged position as a member of the House, assuming, I guess, that the rest of the House decided to grant it to him. And that's not a clear answer there. But to use his status as a member of the House to try to exact revenge. I don't remember what his exact wording was, but he was going to, he said the Ethics Committee and other sources, maybe not just the Ethics Committee, had all sorts of dirt on all sorts of other members, and he was going to take revenge if they released this report. He was going to release, I don't know what. He didn't really say what form the stuff was in. It may have been an empty threat. I don't know. And I guess the threat was pretty empty, because I guess he was speaking to, I don't know, one of several thousand Republican conferences that is always going on. And he used the opportunity to tell people, well, actually, what I'm thinking of doing, maybe I'll run for Marco Rubio's Senate seat and fill that Senate seat. And then, as he said, I'll rejoin some of those people on Capitol Hill, meaning he would be over in the Senate, and, well, some of them have moved over to the House or something, and blah, blah, blah. I don't know exactly why he phrased it the way he did, but I was wondering, it was just a couple of days ago you were threatening to just claim your certificate of election on the House floor. Why is that no longer the plan? I guess he might think it's upping the ante to say, I might show up in the Senate, but why take a chance running for the Senate when you could definitely, and when would you be able to, show up in the Senate? Whereas definitely on January 3rd, you could show up and do that, unless he got some information in between his first threat and now that would indicate that something about that wouldn't work. And I mean, technically it would work, but as I mentioned, there's the possibility that the then current or the then brand new members of the House will say, yeah, we actually would like to, someone would just make a motion that Gates stand aside and not be allowed to take the oath pending an ethics committee investigation into what should we do about this report. And it would only take one or two Republicans to say, yeah, he creeps me out, actually, to make that happen. So maybe he got word from somebody, whether it was a speaker's office or somebody who can count. I don't know if they have any, but maybe the count from Sesame Street, looking for more work now that Sesame Street might end, let him know, yeah, that might not work, and it might actually be totally humiliating. Anyway, lots of other news out there. Still some more news to report about the Marco Rubio Senate seat as well, but we have limited time here. Greg Dworkin is waiting to go. I guess the sleigh is loaded and you're done with any elfing duties. I heard you were filling in, just doing an undercover thing, a investigative report in the North Pole. Or is that just a rumor, Greg? I assume it's just a rumor. All right. But we can't hear you, so we don't know for sure. But maybe you've gone out for breakfast. Okay, well, okay. Well, I think he's been stunned into silence, actually. Or else he thought, well, he's just never going to let me talk and I won't go on here. Okay.
How about now?
Go. Yes, that was good. Was that putting the plug in part?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
The plug fell out for some reason.
Oh. I was just kidding. I thought that noise might be something else.
So I think what happened is Matt Gaetz was notified by Nancy Pelosi, who can count even though she's not there and recovering from hip surgery. That, the votes were there to keep him out, so no threat. And the other weird thing is that just about every Democrat I know didn't vote for Nixon, but just about every Democrat I know said, hey, go ahead and release all the dirt. That would be like the most wonderful thing ever. Release the dirt on everybody. That's not a threat.
That's true.
Resign your damn commission, hot lips. Who cares?
That's pretty much it. I did notice that there are lots of Democrats. Well, I'll release information on Democrats. Yeah. Good. I mean, we don't like people who are bad.
Yeah. I mean, that's always been the case, and that's the thing.
Darn it.
So, there, you mentioned some of the news stories. Yeah, I think the big thing about Matt Gaetz is that he was supposed to be the Attorney General, and I don't think anybody should ever let anyone forget that, especially voters.
Right. I have a feeling that they will and the reporters aren't going to follow up a whole lot, but okay.
One thing about Hakeem Jeffries is he stays on message and he keeps the Democrats together. So I think that's, really quite good. And it would only take a vote, I think, in the current Congress, the current to-be Congress, that is to say, the one that we think is shaping up, where we think Republicans are only going to have a one-seat majority when all is said and done. Until special elections happen in the spring to fill out the 3 or so that are going to move over to the Trump administration. That being the case, Gates could have his ethics committee hearing hold everything up for him. Yeah. And, in fact, everything that Republicans want to do may be held up by Hakeem Jeffries, who's going to be a very important person in the next Congress.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So, we'll see
might
what
even be speaker
threats
since
he
Mike
wants.
Johnson doesn't have the votes.
Yeah, right. That's true. Although Elon Musk might be speaker because, he might be everything, as it turns out. That was another big event of the weekend. Also, coming to realize that it was, in fact, reaching Trump's ears that people were making those sorts of snickering remarks. And I guess he forced his people to put something out.
Trump bristles at Musk's rocketing profile as Democrats play in the president-elect's vanity. And so this is something they are on message about.
Yeah. Right. Well, he's made himself very upset about that, and he's doing the whole. Well, what's the online meme about it? Don't print in the newspaper that I was mad. I think he might have actually said that once, but people keep repeating it online. And so he had to put out a statement that says, no, I'm definitely the president. And he also was at this wacko conference, whatever it is. I think it's a Turning Point USA
thing.
TPUSA,
where a lot of weird stuff was said. Tim Miller was there. We're going to talk about that a little bit.
Oh, okay. And, he was there, a number of people, but I think Trump was saying, I'm safe. He can't be president. He's not born in this country, which is
but it doesn't matter
hilarious.
if he's president or not. A Republican representative, Tony Gonzalez, described the incoming dynamic in Washington. We have a president. We have a vice president. We have a speaker. It feels like Elon Musk is our prime minister, he said on CBS's Space Station. That's going to go over well. Yeah, where does it say in the Constitution that he can't be prime minister because he was born in Africa? Huh?
Right.
Where does it say that, buddy?
Yeah. Well, let's see you prove it. Okay. Well, yes, another conference means another opportunity for crazy, although I did see Oliver Willis making a good point on Blue Sky. As dumb as these constant conferences are, it's good for their organizing. It keeps them doing things. It makes headlines, etc. Democrats really don't rally people frequently until it's about 15 minutes to election time.
Yeah,
it's a good point.
Problem. But, there's things that we do need to do differently. Howard Dean's 50-state strategy was a good idea. I think Ben Wickler's trying to bring that back.
All right.
So the headline I had in the Pundit Roundup today is the DNC chair election is for insiders, but it does matter.
It does.
And so Washington Post followed up with that.
Okay.
State Democratic parties use DNC chair race to pitch redistribution of power and money.
Okay.
State party leaders want to return to a more robust 50-state strategy with less centralized control by elected Washington leaders, which would be, on the whole, a good idea. It's funny because you have taught me that while it's not always dispositive and determinative, it's clearly true that if you are running for a leadership position in the House, for example, if you have raised a lot of money for members and or done several favors for members and or otherwise contributed to their well-being while they were themselves members, you have a leg up on any leadership elections. That's just the way it works.
Yeah, it makes sense. Right? It's a leadership thing to do.
That means that Elon Musk could make his pitch for being speaker as I will fund every one of your elections.
Yes.
It's all the same thing, right?
Yeah, that's, I guess, although usually you have to deliver it first.
Crassest, clear public form.
Yeah.
But that's what we're talking about here.
Right, and somebody has floated his name. Oh, if Mike Johnson gets bounced out and they can't decide between, and they have another terrible, drawn-out contest. Well, it doesn't say anywhere in the Constitution that the member has, the speaker has to be a member. This comes up every once in a while.
Right.
Although I did see an interesting refutation of that offered by a constitutional law professor, which,
you know.
I mean, it was interesting. I think it's actually probably correct.
They thought that SCOTUS would never, give unlimited immunity to Trump, so I'm not paying attention.
There's no way to tell, like, okay, are they, What would the Supreme Court want to do? They might actually be interested in keeping Elon Musk out of that job.
Well, that's a different story. If you want to argue that SCOTUS has their own reasons for not going along with this, that's one thing. But don't tell me about the Constitution.
Yeah.
That's stupid. Tell me about what the Supreme Court
We
says.
don't care about that thing anymore.
We don't care about the Constitution.
It doesn't work.
Nobody does. The Supreme Court doesn't.
Right. Not to say that we want to have a convention about it.
That's where we stand these days.
Okay. We stand all over the place. There's a lot happening.
Yeah, anyway. The Association of State Democratic Chairs, there is such a thing, which directly represents the largest single block of the Furniture Association. The National Party's voting members adopted a proposal this month that would give state parties 50% of all funds that national leaders raise through joint fundraising agreements with their state accounts. And the proposal has provoked sharp concern among party leaders in Washington.
The national
fear the changes could discourage high-dollar donors from writing six-figure checks, pull money away from battleground states, and deplete funds from other national priorities. In other words, it's a great idea.
Okay.
Well, Bill
I can't
Graham,
imagine
the banking committee chair, feels like they shouldn't be pulling money away from his committee. Well, too freaking bad.
Me too. But, anyway, I don't have any money coming in. But, but if someone wanted to send it all to the states, I'd say... I don't know. Do I want to win? I'm not sure. Well, let's find out.
So it's also focused the internal fight over the DNC chair on state party priorities, issues that have long been championed by one of the top candidates, Minnesota Democratic Farmer Labor Party chair Ken Martin, a guy you never heard of, which is why I wrote the headline that said it's for insiders. He happens to lead the Association of Furniture for the Democrats committee this year. The Association of State Democratic Chairs is led by Ken Martin.
Right.
Martin said he supports the ASDC effort, though he couldn't commit to the specific demands. His top rival for the job, my favorite, Wisconsin Democratic Party Chair Ben Wickler, because he gets it done, also says he supports more resources for state parties, but casts himself as a candidate better able to unite the entire party. Former Governor Martin O'Malley and New York State Senator James Skoufis, two other contenders for the job, that one you barely remember and the other you never heard of, have also proposed increased resources for state party. The key is to expand the pie, not divide it up differently, Wickler said. And he's very good at fundraising, too, by the way. So somebody who can communicate, somebody who can raise money, somebody who can unite the party, somebody who can get support from the states that are not centered around New York, California, and D.C. Would be a very good chair. And I think that that would get people talking about the Democrats the entire 4 years instead of, like you said, in the last 15 minutes.
Yeah.
After the 2004 presidential campaign, the Post says, state party chairs proposed a plan to distribute more money to the states, a 50-state strategy Howard Dean used to win the party chairmanship. That proposal, aides to Obama, reimagined the DNC as an extension of his own political operation.
Yes.
So that pretty much ruined the party, One of the things Obama did not do is party build. One of the things Biden didn't do is step down and not run again. I mean, there are things that these party elders, who we highly respect, nonetheless did wrong, that are coming back to haunt us. And I think maybe it's time we do listen a little bit more to the state people out there.
Okay. All those people came from states now. Come on.
Most of them, yeah.
Yeah. So, all right. Yeah.
The ones that didn't come from South Africa.
Right. But they have states. Just not ours, I think, right? At any rate, okay. Well, plenty of action on that front, and I don't know. I'm not certain. When do they? You know what? I haven't read in all this. I'm sure it's in the articles, but when does the election take place for chair?
That I don't know.
Yeah, I have.
I do. What I do know
about
elections is New Jersey and Virginia have off-year elections.
Oh yes, right. And
so you want to do some party building there?
Yeah. Next year is that off year, and that's like we make the jokes about the checks being hard to write in about a week. So
anyway, it looks like the chair election is going to be somewhere around February 1st.
Okay, yeah, it
Party
makes sense.
winter meeting.
Winter meetings, yes. I think I've been to one of those. Not on purpose, but I was there.
Did you win when you ran?
I did win. They let me out, so it's terrific.
You were the big winner.
Yeah. All right. Well, okay. So
they didn't
winter
make you DNC
meeting.
chair.
No, they didn't. I didn't ask, and it wouldn't have worked at that moment, but. And it wouldn't work now either. Really, honestly, that's a mystery position.
Away. I mean, it's not that far.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to get charged up about it. It's not an election that you or I or grassroots Democrats have a real. Well, we certainly don't vote. This is for the members of the Democratic National Committee, and that's settled as to who those people are. You've missed your chance if you're not a member of the Democratic.
It's going to be one of those four, and it's probably going to be this Ken Martin guy or Ben Wickler. Philip Bailey writes in USA Today. One of the first big tasks will be choosing a replacement for outgoing Democratic National Committee Chair Jamie Harrison, who telegraphed his departure before the presidential election's outcome. Well, that's typically the case. They get replaced every 4 years. They certainly get replaced by whoever the presidential candidate is so they can coordinate what's going on with the election. Without a president, House Speaker, or Senate Majority Leader, the chair will be a critical face of the Democratic Party, which is one of the reasons why I'd rather have somebody with a proven track record of public relations and fundraising in Wickler, as well as organizing, than somebody I never heard of. Serving as his chief messenger for at least the next 2 years heading into the 2026 midterm election, but the role also requires a person with a mind for recruiting candidates, establishing field organizing, and the ability to haul in millions in campaign cash. Again, the reason I like Wickler is that he's creative. He did the, Princess Bride reunion that raised millions for the Wisconsin Supreme Court race.
That was a good thought. I must say, I mean, that's definitely, that's a super creative thought. I mean, I don't know how you can necessarily recreate that, but if it came from that mind, that's what resumes are about, right? Oh, that guy did that? All right, sure. I'm assuming he'll do something good again. Come on in. Right.
So he tweeted just the other day, Saturday, the soul of the Democratic Party is to fight for working people together in an inseparable strategic partnership with the union movement. We can launch a new golden era for labor organizing and for working families everywhere. And then he cites an article that John Nichols wrote in The Nation. If Democrats want to reconnect with the working class, they need to start listening to unions. Democrats blew it with non-union workers in the 2024 election. Unions have a plan to get the party on message. The only problem with that is that if you're not a higher education person, only about 5% of households have union members.
Yeah, I mean, that's a little worrisome. I definitely love the idea of, more people should be in unions, and they kind of sort of hint at that, but that is something to watch out for. Well, what we need to do is hitch our wagon to the 5%. Well, it's not quite hitch our wagon to, but certainly, look, they do. People who are in unions do organizing. That's the only way there are unions. So
John Nichols points out a really important thing here in terms of how you think about this, because, again, this is messaging. Union members voted for Harris by a solid 57-39, according to exit polls, and that was comparable with the union vote for Biden in 2020. A notable fact in an election year when support for Democrats declined among so many demographic groups. In fact, noted Politico, union voters were one of the few groups that did not shift toward Trump, and Republicans in what is shaping up to be one of the party's strongest presidential election cycles in recent memory, Republicans. So why are we hearing so much about the Democrats losing the working class vote? Because most working Americans aren't union members. As a result, they don't get information about Trump's aggressively anti-worker policies from the education campaigns. And basically what unions want to do is they want to organize education things, which works very well. That's why the union vote was so strong. Vice President Harris got a stronger percentage of union voters this election than Biden did in 2020, but she still lost. Why? Said International Union of Painters and Allied Trades Union President Jimmy Williams Jr. Why?
Why? Because
the Democratic Party has continued to fail to prioritize a strong working class message that addresses issues that matter to workers. The party didn't make a positive case for why workers should vote for them, only that they were not Donald Trump, and that's not good enough.
Yeah, that really was pretty good, though.
So how could the party start to get it right? The AFL-CIO has a plan, describing the race for DNC chair as a unique opportunity to once again bring working people back to its center. They explained that the election of a new slate of DNC officers will allow the party to change its course and center its purpose and messaging around the economic and social needs of working people. What resonated with union members in 2024 was a message built around economic issues with a broad appeal. It's time for Democrats to stop doing business as usual, and that's not just a call for change. It's a new standard that can and should be applied, says Nichols, when assessing the contenders for DNC posts. And I think that's all of a piece with considering that there is this election that will happen around February 1st or so, and it's going to have impact in terms of how Democrats do going forward. So I'm paying attention to the race.
Okay.
Even if other people
You're entitled to do this. We were paying attention to the race to the extent that up until the point where we find out when is it happening. but now we know.
I mean, so we're experts.
We don't have votes.
When it's happening, we have an idea where it's happening, and we even know who the contenders are. So
that's pretty good, honestly. I mean, 99% of America does not know, and they might not have to, but it's important to find these things out. If you're going to take an interest in it, you want to take an interest in when it's going to happen. We've been through a couple of these things, and DNC chair is a weird position, and people have some weird ideas about what the DNC does and doesn't do, or what the chair is and isn't responsible for, and they kind of confuse it, and especially in a situation like this where the trifecta sits in the hands of the Republicans, and there's a really prominent role to be had for the DNC chair. They don't all take it, and they don't all approach it the same way, but it might be time for an expansive role that better mirrors what people think it's going to be. Okay.
What does the minority leader in the House do?
Yes. Okay.
Relatively speaking, not much. Consider that everything it's concentrated on the Speaker and the majority party, and yet a whole bunch of important stuff happens, particularly when the majority party can't get their act together.
Yeah,
so
that's
Hakeem
true.
Jeffries, who people like and who think is strong and who has a good message and who keeps the party together, turns out to be a very important person, not because of the minority leader job description, but because of who he is and what he does.
Hi, I'm Scott Anderson, the guy that writes the daily summary for this show, Kagro in the Morning. Thank you to everyone that supports this show. Many of you send donations through PayPal, Patreon, Square Cash, Radio Public, and so on. Some of you write your own essays and send them in, or read articles with your own commentary. We appreciate it. Now, some of you are listening to this and thinking, I'd like to help, but isn't there something I could do that wouldn't require money or effort? Why, yes, there is. You can just like us. On Daily Kos, they call it the recommend button. YouTube has a thumbs up. There are hearts and likes and love buttons. Tap our love button. Tap our love button every day. Share our shows and summaries on Facebook and Twitter, YouTube and iTunes, Stitcher and Amazon. Most of these places allow you to write a review, so a sentence or two would be great. Recommend us to social media, or tell your friends to listen to the show. You aren't just helping us, you're helping them find their new favorite thing to listen to. You could change the world. So thank you in advance from me and everybody else in the world.
All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. We return from break, and we did a little engineering here, and I lowered a rope down into the basic well. And
I've got this wonderful microphone from Blue that I use based on David's suggestion, but he also suggested I get this screen on a stick.
Oh, yes.
How else to describe
pop filter, I think, is what it's called. But
yes, and when I put that in front of the microphone, David says I sound distant and cold, and our relationship is going. And so I got rid of it, so he understands that things are still hot.
Well, you have to keep things spicy, as they say. Exactly. I don't know who says that, but they should be fired.
I moved it away. I don't know what it does. And if you're telling me it doesn't help, I'm not going to use it.
And that's not usually there? Is that a new addition? Or
no, I mean, I put it where it always is. Oh. But for some reason...
Something was going on this morning, early first thing, the plug and this and that. I don't know. I got rid of my pop filter, too. I want more pop. I don't know, but mine...
I want more pop and less filter, so I'm moving it to the side.
That's right. I want to work without a filter.
I can never position it exactly at the right angle anyway. Yeah. It would stay where I wanted it to. So now it's gone.
I think it's...
people will just have to report to you how things sound. Speaking of how
sounds
things
better
sound...
now. Yeah.
The Ethics Committee report on Gates doesn't sound good at all, and we didn't exactly specify. So let me tell you some stuff CNN says about it that's just out this morning.
He's a perv. I mean, that's what I was going to say.
The House Ethics Committee found evidence that former Representative Matt Gaetz, that's Gates, not Gertz,
right,
paid tens of thousands of dollars to women for sex or drugs on at least 20 occasions, including paying a 17-year-old for sex in 2017. That's illegal, folks.
Yeah, but
according
it was a
to a final draft
thing.
of the panel's report on the Florida Republican obtained by CNN. The committee concluded in its bombshell document that Gates violated Florida state laws, including the state statutory rape law, as the GOP-led panel chose to take the rare step of releasing a report about a former member who resigned from Congress, and as you pointed out, resigned specifically so this report wouldn't be released.
Yeah, and then threatened to come back, so who knows whether he's a former member or not.
The committee determined there is, and this is a quote, the committee determined there is substantial evidence that Representative Gates violated House rules and other standards of conduct prohibiting prostitution. Did you know the House rules prohibit prostitution? Who knew?
Of members themselves or as patrons?
It's.
I'm not sure.
I was thinking of Wilbur Mills and Fannie Fox and what is against the rules as opposed to not right.
Yeah.
Statutory rape, illicit drug use, impermissible gifts, special favors or privileges, and obstruction of Congress.
Obstruction of Congress. Okay. Is that bad now?
I don't know. Maybe they can put you in that little, mythical jail cell in the basement. The panel investigated transactions Gates personally made, often using PayPal or Venmo, to more than a dozen women during his time in Congress, according to the report. Investigators also focused on a 2018 trip to the Bahamas.
Oh, the Bahamas.
Who's ambassador to the Bahamas?
Herschel Walker is now perking up just a little bit.
Maybe that's why he asked for the job.
Yeah.
Which they
what
said
violated
the House gift rule, during which he engaged in sexual activity with multiple women, including one who described the trip itself as the payment for sex on the trip.
You're not... All right.
On the same trip, he also took ecstasy, one woman on the trip told the committee.
Why not? Go ahead. Sure.
The vote to put out the report, which was opposed by
angry?
panel chair Michael Guest, a Mississippi Republican, was the culmination of a years-long probe. He was President-elect Donald Trump's first pick to be Attorney General, but dropped out amid opposition from GOP senators.
And criminals. This is not fair at all.
Right. And it's a political jolt that could have reverberations for years to come as the Capitol Hill panel takes aim at a longtime Trump loyalist and now conservative anchor at One American Network. So he got a job.
Oh, right. I forgot. I would never be observing. I don't know, has he been on the air for them yet? Or is he I'll start after the new year?
His line of defense basically is, look, I send money to women when they ask me for it. It's just as simple as that. Leave me alone.
Sure. Okay. No, I don't think people will probably leave him alone about that. My other question is, maybe this is a question his therapist needs to ask him. I don't think he's seeing anybody, but I'm confused about why you're so angry. As it sounds like you should be a very happy person and very happy-go-lucky and having a good life and maybe even interested in allowing other people to have a good life. But he's very angry and jealous and possessive, not necessarily of the dozens of women, but of his lifestyle. And he doesn't want anyone else to be enjoying, I guess, lots of sex and ecstasy. What's happening with the ecstasy? Is it just not working? Maybe he has bad ecstasy.
Yeah, he should be ecstatic about this report.
Exactly. He should be dancing around in glow necklaces and having raves about it.
Yeah.
But he's, I don't know.
That's what I read.
The ecstasy is not working.
He's in ecstasy about this report.
He's got a very big forehead, and I guess maybe there's just not enough. He's not taking enough ecstasy. There's a big brain in there. Okay, well, it's too bad. It's not working. He should be having the time of, or was, I thought, having the time of his life, but he's a very bitter person, apparently.
Right. So let me talk about some other headlines that are just out there, because given that it's Monday morning,
because Matt Gaetz,
and I have nothing else to say, I want to talk about this.
Sure, nothing happened, right? Go ahead.
First of all, this won't affect you, but it does affect New Jersey, New York, Missouri, Colorado, Ohio, and Pennsylvania, and that is there's a Starbucks strike.
Oh, okay.
You may be a Dunkin' person. I don't think that Massachusetts cares one way or the other.
Oh.
Very much Dunkin' people.
Rhode Island, too.
Starbucks, the union said the strike could reach hundreds of stores.
So this is like a venti strike.
It's a double venti. It's growing.
All right.
Other things in the news: Nissan and Honda are going to merge.
Nissan and Honda are going to merge?
Yeah, they're going to be Nanda.
Shonda? I don't.
What?
What?
They'll be. That would create the world's third largest automaker.
Huh. I mean,
and that'll allow them to compete with Chinese car makers who they're worried about.
I think they were already maybe doing that. Honda and who? Was Nissan?
Nissan.
No,
yeah.
Nissan. Okay. I mean, wow. Those are some sizable operations. I didn't know that was on the horizon, but okay.
Yeah. Nanda would be a very, very formidable company.
Nissan. What happened to Datsun? Bring back Datsun.
Nah, that's gone. So the other thing that I think was sort of big
Honda.
is Joe Biden announced that he's taking 37 people off federal death row.
Yeah, I was wondering, should we even... okay, that's a big news. Very true. People have been anticipating this for a long time and hoping that it would happen.
They've pushed him. Here are the 3 that he's not commuting, and plus another 4. The 3 that he's not commuting. None
of those things.
The 3 he's not allowing to get out of
They're
jail
staying on death row.
Is Dzhokhar Tsarnaev, the Boston Marathon bomber.
Yes.
Dylan Roof, white nationalist, Charleston, South Carolina.
The Riddler.
Robert Bowers, who killed 11 worshippers at Pittsburgh's Tree of Life synagogue in 2018.
Right. So if you are a mass murderer at a house of worship or a long-distance running event.
Yeah, or a long-distance running house of worship like the Boston Marathon. Then, then
you're
don't
out.
Get off. And then
right.
I think there's 4 others on death row, but they happen to be military death row.
All right. So military uniform code of military justice. I mean, I guess he's still got the pardon power there, but I guess it doesn't count as federal death row. It is federal in nature, but it's just
And different. I do think, by the way, CNN is listing these headlines, the one that they list about drone sightings, which are simply pointing out that they've renewed concerns that the U.S. doesn't have clear government-wide policy for how to deal with unauthorized incursions.
Right. Well, Putin rears his head.
I thought
Sarah
that they
Palin does
went
something.
out and they created Space Force. Isn't that what this is for? They have some command and control, centralized way of approaching things that are in the air.
I don't know. No, I don't think so. I think Space Force kind of screwed it up. I mean, first of all, that's not space, is it? Unless they think it's aliens.
Yeah, well, Elon Musk isn't president. How far do you want to go here? It's all about what the Supreme Court says.
This is interesting. I wonder if there's been any lines drawn here. Like Air Force.
what's their job?
Versus Space Force. I don't know what Space Force's job is, but Air Force versus Space Force. I guess when you get to a certain altitude, Space Force takes over. I don't know.
Right.
But not in a NASA way, in a military way. I don't know. I guess satellite weapons.
Well, clearly, Space Force isn't enough, and it was a bad idea. What we do is we convert the whole thing into Lawn Chair Larry Force. That's the level of
above the rim force. Like basically,
you need to adjust your attitude about your altitude. If
it's higher than a basketball rim, that's space. It's like we got Army and then up there force. Yeah. I don't know. But also, I mean, the last week or so has been more about realizing maybe all the people who said they were seeing drones aren't seeing drones, because as it turns out, a lot of them are helicopters, airplanes, stars. They're really, it's getting crazy. And I can't believe people somehow couldn't tell the difference. So I do think that maybe there's something flying, I'm sure but I don't know what the hell's up there, but the better takeaway is the one that you say, that people need to, it is a weird hole in the jurisdictional control, and people can buy drones at Best Buy and just fly them anywhere. And yeah, there's a lot of signs around that say don't fly your drones here, but there's signs that say don't take ecstasy and have sex with 17-year-olds.
But people do anyway, so what do you do about it? That's really the question.
Yeah. So anyway, as it turns out, as far as I know, no alien invasion. Nancy Mace is just on the wrong track on that one.
People are really getting mad at Nancy Mace from the Republican side. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah, well, she's making a spectacle of herself, which is not a bad thing among Republicans, but there's a long line of people who think it's their turn to be that person, I guess. And she's hogging it all up.
Yeah.
All right.
Victoria Spartz is really mad because Nancy Mace is making less sense than Spartz.
Right.
And she doesn't like that.
She should get a big. She has to do more photo ops and wear Avenger T-shirts or whatever.
Right.
And it was supposed to be adultery, but it looked like Avengers or Captain America. So
the other thing that wasn't in the CNN headline roundup, which should have been, I think.
Yes.
Trump demands Panama lower transit fees or return the canal. President-elect called fees a ripoff in Truth Social post.
That I didn't hear that, the first part. Yeah.
The worldwide drought hampered the canal's ability to move ships between oceans, so it costs more to do it. 78% of the transit is actually United States shipping. And so Trump feels like we're being unfairly taxed.
Tariffed, even.
Therefore, let's pull a George H.W. Bush and invade the Bahamas or something.
Yeah, right. Any tropical weather means invasion, I think, at this point. That's the Monroe Doctrine, although, was it George Conway said, we used to have the Monroe Doctrine, now we have the Moron Doctrine.
Yeah.
Clever.
Bully.
Lots of,
it's good enough for Teddy, it's good enough for us.
I guess so. Lots of bullying and territorial expansion talk, which is sort of a Nazi-ish kind of a thing, so it's all of a piece. But I didn't realize that he was
all over
concerned.
Says, hey, I agree. Let's bring back yellow fever. Let's get rid of vaccines. I'm all for this.
I guess so. I didn't know what the trigger was about the Panama Canal. It just sort of came out of nowhere. And I guess this is where, this is interesting because this is a critical point at which it may occur again to Americans. There was a brief insight into it during the debate, and they're eating the cats and the dogs, and he's catching normie Americans by surprise with pronouncements that are no surprise to right-wing news consumers. I mean, increasing numbers of them all over the place, unfortunately. But like the Panama thing, I saw, all right, he demanded the Panama Canal back, but it wasn't clear under what conditions or why. And then he also, in naming a new ambassador designate, well, they're not a designate yet until the 20th, but, a presumptive ambassador to Denmark. He also noted in his Truth Social post about it that, by the way, I was serious about Greenland, and it said not only do I actually want to have it, and I hope that this new ambassador to Denmark will talk about it because Denmark is nominally in charge of Greenland, but that is now that he just put it in terms of it's now an absolute strategic and national security necessity. America must own and control Greenland. Like that's a step forward. I guess. I mean,
that 70-something thing I quoted wasn't so much how much of it is U.S. shipping. It's how much of current world shipping can actually fit in the canal.
At once.
I mean, some of the ships are so big they don't fit anymore.
Right, that's true. Let's not forget that was a problem recently for the other canal that people know about, the Erie Canal. Yeah, exactly. No, the Suez Canal. Right. Is the two canals about which there's most fighting.
The Gowanus Canal. I mean, there's a bunch of canals here.
Love Canal.
Not all of them are in great shape, and some of them smell pretty bad.
Right. That's true. But the big shipping, the ships are getting too big. They turn, they get stuck. I don't know. But I didn't realize what the precipitating complaint was. So transit fees.
Transit fees are going up because revenue's going down.
Yeah. Well, I mean, transit fees are going up because all sorts of things. And by the way, that's Panama's way of making money. Is their tariffs essentially, and those are supposed to be a good thing, except when they are exercised by other countries. Whatever. So in addition to the Panama Canal that he wants to take back, plus he wants to take over Greenland, and of course the last 2 weeks or so, he now is in the habit of referring to Canada as should be the 51st state, and that.
Well, I think what he wants to do is buy Greenland, move it to Panama, and then have the Greenland Canal, and then we own everything.
Okay.
For security purposes. I sent you a picture, by the way, of a fully loaded cargo ship because I just think they're amazing.
Yeah.
It's basically
I'm amazed
a barge
that they allow it.
Stacked with these rectangular shipping containers.
Sure.
which in and of itself is a business shipping empty containers back to say China to fill them up so they can send them back here again. You make money doing that. But these things are enormous, and I could see why they're not exactly maneuverable and fast.
Right.
And also, I don't know how you move around on deck because, there's no room.
Yeah, I'm not certain how that happens. I guess nothing.
And,
there's nobody
and then how do you
around.
decide that? Why can't we put one more layer on?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess you see right up at the top there, you can see the bridge of the ship over the top. And I guess at that point, hey, I can't see to steer.
Is that why?
Which is that's what the limit is. And I guess that's what they call the Francis Scott Key Bridge limit. They must stack one in front of the bridge of the ship, and you smash into the bridge of the
part of the ship, and that doesn't change size. So it doesn't matter how many other things you stack. But if you can't see, that's another story.
Right. So, and you put something in front of the bridge of the ship, you will run into the bridge in front of the harbor and knock it down. That you see how large the thing that's the size of the ship that got stuck in the Suez Canal. This is the size of the ship that smashed through a bridge and knocked the whole thing down. They're pretty big.
Right, so it's actually sort of interesting.
I can't believe they can just stack
in a global sense. Global warming, a drought is reducing water levels in a nearby lake used to manage the depths for cargo ships passing through its locks. That's led to tonnage restrictions and fewer vessels transiting the shortcut every day, causing delays. Those unwilling to wait have two options: pay hefty fees to jump the queue, or sail a much greater distance around South America or through the Suez Canal. And as you pointed out, Suez Canal has its own issues. Hapag-Lloyd, the world's number 5 container carrier, recently started a live ticker showing the rerouting of its ships.
I'd like to see
This
that.
is tough if you're trying to tame inflation. And the number of daily transits through the canal has actually declined by about a third since August 1st.
I'd be like to look at this thing. Are people opting to sail around the bottom of South America?
Well, if you can't get through and you want to pay money to jump the line, the snarl will only worsen in the coming months.
That's
as
congestion
Panama enters
pricing.
its annual dry season. So I think what Trump is objecting to is charging money to jump the line.
That's just Uber, though. Anyway, I don't understand that. And, of course, the engineering is fascinating in terms of,
does that.
Okay, why do they build the Panama Canal where they build it? Why do they build the Suez Canal where they build it? Well, connecting two bodies of water. And now I find out, we can't find any water. Have you checked the Atlantic or Pacific Oceans? Because they're right next to you. But, no, that's not the way it works. And you just, you learn the logistics of things and how it actually operates, and you can't just say, why don't you just take the water out of the ocean? Which I'm sure is what Donald Trump is thinking.
Right.
But I am sure to the layperson like me, there's a water shortage at the Panama Canal. What are you talking about? The whole point of it was the two biggest bodies of water in the world are connected on either end of this thing. But now... and I guess, they use fresh water in the locks because you don't want salt water in those things, I guess. But, you're connecting the oceans. But, okay. I could see where it would make sense, to not have the gigantic mechanical pieces constantly exposed to salt water.
Right.
If that's what I understand they're saying. But yeah, also I guess in between the two biggest bodies of salt water, if you need a bunch of fresh water, big enough to float one of these friggin' boats that you showed me a picture of, that there should be a fee for that. Sorry. I just can't. You're right about how they stack those things up. And I think those things fall off all the time. It does not occur to people.
Really?
If the boat rocks in a wave,
no, you're kidding.
Doesn't that stuff fall off?
The storms in the ocean?
Yeah. That's new. But
get out the Gorilla Glue. There's a storm coming.
But yeah, those things fall off all the time, and that it leaves all sorts of, the stuff floats around. They find, the Barbie dolls floating in little eddies in the ocean all the time.
So let me ask you: did we talk about Kay Granger?
No, we didn't. But that's just because we forgot, and
Speaking
how it is.
it's easy to forget about Kay Granger. Kay Granger forgot about Kay Granger.
Right. Yeah,
Kay
that
Granger,
was interesting.
Apparently, nobody reported this.
Yeah.
Has been missing for 6 months. Nobody knew where she was.
Well, I have been telling people that there are always people absent, right?
Yes.
Forever, and sometimes they're extended illness.
Was promoting stuff as if she were there.
That's a problem.
We talked about this with Dianne Feinstein. when the staff feels
too.
like they have to stay because their paycheck depends on it, and winds up covering for their boss who is otherwise
a bit out of it, or
completely more than a bit out of it. Kay Granger was found.
Yes.
We now know where she was. She was living in an assisted living facility for the memory impaired.
Yes.
And now that
for 6 months.
She's been found.
Yes.
Now, only now, people are reporting, we knew about this. She would often wander around the halls asking, where's my office? Or, at home, people understood that she would wander around saying, does anybody know where I live? I mean,
she was. That's where she landed herself in this place after being found. She was a silver alert person. They were like, she's lost, and then she was found wandering around her neighborhood. So up until that's the idea. You put her in there.
She was one of the cardinals. She was like a big deal.
She was the chair of the Appropriations Committee through March.
Right.
So it's a very unusual story.
March isn't that long ago.
No, and it has triggered, now that the story is broken open wide, there are others saying, in March she was at the end of her rope. Basically, they were trying to Dianne Feinstein this thing out, but it got obvious that it wasn't working anymore around March, and she resigned. But you're right, the staff maintained a social media presence that made it look like she was still not only had it together, but was still in Washington.
Yeah.
Thanking her interns.
It isn't a question of, her staff was tweeting instead of her. That's not the point.
Right. That happens all the time.
First of all, she wasn't present for votes.
6 months.
Secondly, for 6 months, her constituency was not represented. That is a basic tenet of democracy.
Yes, there were some people pushing back. Well, they were probably doing the constituent service at the staff level, but they weren't. They stopped answering the phones a couple months ago.
Yeah, because people kept asking where she was, and she didn't want to talk about that, so they stopped answering the phones.
I guess also I'll point this out because people were, saying, well, at least it wasn't Feinstein. She wasn't trying to do the job. Well, that's a weird thing to say. At least she wasn't even trying to work.
A Republican congresswoman from Texas has not cast a vote, according to The Guardian, in the U.S. House since July. While she has been grappling with dementia issues and residing in a senior living facility, according to her family, something she didn't disclose to the public before a Dallas media outlet figured it out during a prolonged absence.
You shouldn't
She's represented
hide
the Dallas-Fort Worth area since 1997, and she spent more than a year as the chairperson of the powerful House Appropriations Committee.
Yeah, I saw some pictures circulating of her that they were tweeting out recently, I guess, but pictures of her at what looked to be like the dedication of her official portrait as chair, which is something that the chair people do, and they spend lots of government money getting portraits made of them. And it really didn't look like she was, quite mentally present, but that's a remote diagnosis, but you could see it didn't look good for her, and that was months ago. And also, so by the way, yes, people sometimes do take extended leaves of absence from the House, but there's a whole procedure. I've seen it.
And people know, and it's
right. You don't hide
record.
it. That's the issue. And she didn't. It's not a hard procedure either. If you're a occasional viewer of the Congressional Record, and there are 6 or 7 people in the world who are, you'll see those letters in there. All you have to do is drop a letter to the speaker, and they print it in the record saying, I'm asking for a leave of absence, or whatever it is, because you have a medical issue. You don't have to disclose what the medical issue is.
Right. For example, the Dallas Morning News, which was not the outlet that found this, reported obtaining a statement from Granger's office which conveyed gratitude for the public's concern and stated that unforeseen health challenges had made traveling to Washington frequently both difficult and unpredictable.
That's an okay thing, but all you have to do is notify the speaker, and the speaker's the same party as you. He'll say, yes, it's fine. You can continue to draw your salary, your health care coverage, so can your staff. But why hide it? I'm not sure why she
did, and they did. We just don't know because nothing is transparent with Republicans.
But you have to print that in the record, and if it's not there, then it didn't happen.
Local and state Republican leaders were among those who said they were troubled over the reporting about Granger. Bo French, the chairperson of the Tarrant County, Texas Republican Party, said the lack of representation is troubling to say the least.
Yes.
There's a democracy guy. I'm all for it. You're right.
I guess so. And, it also, I think it probably occurred to everybody. I don't think Kay Granger was in on it. I looked to see if there was anything on the record from her, but no, that didn't surprise me. But the rest of the party was busy telling everybody how terrible Democrats were for covering up, the loss of cognitive ability in Joe Biden. But meanwhile, the chair of the Appropriations
Party guy said, look, she missed important votes on Texas disaster relief, on the debt ceiling, and U.S.-Mexico border stuff.
Yes.
And she's not there to vote for us. Right.
And it probably should have been discovered earlier for a number of reasons, not the least of which is, and I'm surprised I didn't notice but I'm sure we were busy with other things, but I probably, had I seen the article, would have said, when does the chair of the Appropriations Committee just resign in the middle of Congress without us knowing that there's a huge scandal? That was a pretty big red flag. And I didn't see the story, but had I seen the story, I would have wondered, why is she resigning? The explanation was, well, I'm going to mentor the new chair during I'm not running for re-election. She didn't do that. But the story was, well, I'm going to mentor a new chair because I'm going to be leaving. But that's not normal procedure. And we probably should have said, she's probably absent and ill at this point because there's no scandal being reported. I don't think anybody's ever alleged that there was one around her necessarily, but it's probably health because of her age, and we would have figured it out and everything would have been fine. She would have said, I'm getting older and I'm not in great shape.
Political guy Jeff Stalin reminds us, by the way, before we leave the air for today, that Matt Gaetz had let it be known that he wanted to run for governor. I don't know how this affects that decision.
Oh. You mean Kay Granger?
No, his ethics report. It's Florida, so maybe it doesn't at all.
Right, it could be. Maybe it's a selling point. I don't know. They have a governor, as I understand it. Is Ron DeSantis term limited? Is that a possibility?
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay, I don't really know. And he doesn't care anyway, because to hell with the Constitution. All right, well, so yesterday he threatened to run for Senate. Before that, he was threatening to come back to the House. Oh, by the way, Lara Trump apparently taking herself out of consideration when she found out that she was never going to get that seat. So Marco Rubio's seat right now not going to Lara, it seems. So up in the air. Matt Gaetz, who knows? All right, thanks. All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. Working out the schedule for the rest of the week. Greg's a busy guy. He's got some things going on. I got some things going on. We'll figure it out. Something, blah, blah, blah. But you also have things going on, probably. Kwanzaa, for instance. Big confluence going on here between, it's like a what do they call it when the planetary alignment? They have a different word for it. But okay, convergence, is that it? So Hanukkah, Christmas, Kwanzaa bear a relationship between the two of them anyway. Everyone's favorite Boxing Day, and I don't know if there's another religion having a holiday at that moment. I hope that you'll speak up and send us a message about it, and we can learn a little bit about it, and all have one big unity party, except Republicans will hate that. You know how it is with them. All right. Well, let's see. Conjunction, is that the word? All right. Well, that's what Greg's saying. Greg, if you want to still be on the air, I mean, come on. Planetary alignment, conjunction, conjunctivitis, you might even say conjunction, junction, any number of terminology. That's pretty good. All right. We're doing well here this morning. All right. So let's see. Other news. Other stories, other confluences between stories here. Oh, what is happening? Oh, look at this. I missed this one about half an hour ago. Mighty OCD was commenting on the DNC race thing and saying, what do we have here? Our North Carolina chair, Anderson Clayton, should be running the DNC. Is that, you really think so? I don't think we know anything about Anderson Clayton, but it certainly sounds like a Carolinian name there, Anderson Clayton. Is he like the third by any chance? Anybody who's worth their salt is a third somewhere along the line, I guess. North Carolina. Okay. Well, is he not running though? Or is he running but nobody is mentioning his name? All right, well, we'll see if we can figure it out. Sometime between now and February, we'll figure out who's running and who we should be rooting for to take over the DNC, although it sounds like Greg's pretty much nailed down for Ben Wickler, and I understand why. It's certainly the name about which I've heard the most. But the DNC post is a weird thing. People have weird ideas about what it doesn't do, but it's pretty fluid in the situation we're talking about. Like I said, with the White House in Republican hands and there being no Democratic speaker or Senate leader, majority leader, that is, there's a little more room for the claim that the DNC chair has a more important role in message setting anyway. All right. So let's see. Let me go over to Pocket and take a look at what I had in mind to share with you. Yes, there is the federal death penalty commutations story with a couple of wrinkles in there. As we said, I think there were 30, as Greg mentioned, there were 3 regular civilian death row denizens who did not get included in this commutation of sentences. And the commutation of sentence, it's not a pardon. You shouldn't panic about that. That's just, all right, well, instead of leaving them on death row and fighting against their, executions and stretching things out, and I know the things that people, even death penalty proponents dislike about the death penalty, the federal death penalty process. They just say instead, all right, well, life imprisonment without possibility of parole. They're not going to let you out for patrolling people, and you're not going to let you out on parole either. It's not that sort of thing. It is just simply saying, all right, instead of having them live on death row with the threat of execution hanging over their head, we will instead let a life imprisonment hang over your head. And, I don't know. At any rate, death penalty opponents are happy/sad about it because for some people, of course, yes is never a correct answer. And there's been some weird response to it. So among hardcore, it never applies, the death penalty is always a mistake people, they're actually, it's weird that they're upset. Like 37 people have just, benefited from this clemency here, but yet there are actually people who are saying, well, it's almost worse for having left 3 of them out. No, it's about 37 times better, actually. But, for people who believe it's unjust in every situation, but still, why not focus on the 37? Yes, it might be, I guess, in your view, unfortunate, but they are some people who, you may have noticed there's a disagreement about the application of the death penalty in this country. And, it doesn't send a terrific message, and this is about a message at some level. It doesn't send a terrific message that, you know what, mass murder in a house of worship, bombing the, major cultural event, that'll land you in some trouble. And, but then there are other people who are absolutist about it and say, if you're going to, as I guess Biden did, point to, for instance, his Catholic background and the Pope's pronouncement that the death penalty, I guess, in all situations is unwise and unwarranted at the minimum, if not more strong wording. I'm sure he used stronger wording than that. Then that applies to these other 3 too. Well, it does, but what if you are governing a country and not running a religion, or you're a religious adherent but recognizing political reality in a nation that's not supposed to be governed by one religion or another? Well, then you do the sensible thing, as Joe Biden has done here. But I'm not too concerned about the repercussions of complaints online. And I'm not even all that sure that all of the people complaining online are actually people. They may just be complaint bots. By the way, have I told you about complaint bots? I haven't. I have a story put away. That could be one of the things that we deal with during the week that we're facing with all of the family commitments that people have. But there are such things. I don't know if you have run into them or not, but I guess I'll tease the story. Maybe we'll just tell the story. I don't know, but we'll see what else we have on tap here. But there are, I guess, sort of the newest, maybe it's not all that new and it's just coming to my attention, but in the last couple weeks, months, I've heard more and more about, well, people are hearing more and more about these things these days. These debate bots, essentially. Bots that are set up, and just taking advantage of all the other stuff, the AI picture generation, so they're made to look like maybe sort of normie-ish people accounts. And the programming, essentially, is, I don't know how they select their targets, but the programming is to sort of slightly disagree with people online, not in a super aggressive way. They're not trying to tip people off to what they're going, but to make a slight objection. And they're sort of like reply guys, well, actually guys, right? So they make some mild-ish objection to your point, no matter what the point is, and try to engage you in defense of your point. But the programming is just keep disagreeing, but just by a little bit. So, you say, I heard that Joe Biden commuted these sentences. This is fantastic, terrific. 37 people are spared the federal death penalty. Oh, yeah, well, while I agree, let's examine what's actually going on here. He's saying he's doing it because of his Catholic faith and yet not doing it for these three guys. And isn't that inconsistent? And you're meant to engage in this, what we're doing here. But there's not even another person at the other end of this thing. It's just a time waster. I mean, it's really kind of devious and brilliant. I don't know what you're really going to use it for. Like, if you succeed in wasting an hour of my time online, who cares, right? I haven't been taken away from doing anything important, probably. And ultimately, I don't know. But I guess if you do it over at a mass scale and your aim is, can we refine it such that we could distract huge swaths of the liberal contingent online so that we can flood the zone more with our garbage from other people? I guess if it's a coordinated thing, if you think you can make it work, I don't know. If you think you can make a car that can drive itself, good luck to you. If you think you can control an army of bots that will change public opinion, even though Twitter isn't real life, get out and touch grass. Well, they're going to try it anyway. So there are such things. And by the way, one of the most absurd examples I've seen yet, where did I see this thing? I reposted, this thing on Blue Sky yesterday. A large-ish account that you may have been, you may be familiar with online. Brendel, who's on Blue Sky as Brendel Board, B-O-R-E-D, like I'm bored, but Brendel, carrying over from Twitter. You've probably seen him. He's got a very recognizable avatar, may even not even be a he. I don't know. I don't think that's in there. Anything in the profile? No, joking all through. So anyway, Brendel, I guess, having, normal Brendel fun, absurdist, weirdo fun online, I guess runs into one of these, oddball online ads. There are many. This one in particular, and I guess, I don't know how you ended up getting served this ad, Brendel, but maybe you want to look into that. Your home smells like cat pee? Try this. Well, now, people who are cat families understand how that could happen. Although, usually, there's some point at which cat people who have 50 cats kind of give up. And they're like, yeah, my house smells like cat pee. It's a cat pee house. But anyway, you're hoping if you have just one or two cats to control that. But I see it's a running battle. Anyway, Your home smells like cat pee. Try this. They have a solution for you, or at least they allege to have a solution for you. By the way, they used a very conventional learn more button. And what more do I want to learn? A cat is peeing in my house, and I have a nose. What else do you want to learn? What is the solution? Now, the ad is illustrated, as all good working ads are. But it is illustrated with a very simple pen and ink cartoonish rendering of a cat, presumably peeing, but presumably a female cat, I think, given the direction of the pee. But this cat is standing as though at a urinal, but peeing in the other direction. So I don't really know what's going on, but it's just meant to draw your eye to, why is this cat peeing? And it says, your home smells like cat pee. Try this. Learn more. Then there's the cat peeing, and Brendel making the observation, hey, this seems like the opposite of what you should do. Right? If your home smells like cat pee, don't get your cat standing up and peeing all over the place. That's just going to make it worse. I see. It's a joke. But it draws the attention of, and draws out from hiding, one of these argument bots. It's the most amazing thing. Katie Explores is the screen name adopted by this bot at the address Katie, K-A-T-I-I-E rather, dash Lees, L-E-E-S, and then Blue Sky Social. So, purporting to be a person of the name of Katie Lees, which is unlikely, but okay. And there's a photo and everything. And here's the disagreement bot at work. Now, remember, Brendel has just said, hey, this seems like the opposite of what you should do when your house smells like cat pee. Well, of course it is. And yet, the response is, I see what you mean, but don't you think that's a pretty narrow perspective? And then the emoji. Maybe we should explore this idea further and see if there's more to it than meets the eye, with another emoji there, except I don't know which emoji that is. That's a weird one that, I don't know, I see it all the time. It's kind of like a sly, almost winky looking thing, but it's not a wink. I don't really know what emoji that is. But anyway, yeah, glad to see the automated debate bots are still around. LOL is Brendel's response to that. But yeah, I mean, I guess that really reveals it. But there are such bots. Did you know that? Were you aware of that? All right, now I feel like I've come to demand, at least telling you that I have these other stories that have been sitting around for some time. And let's see, I think I first noticed it when on Blue Sky again, Andy Baio, who I guess spells it the same way that Scott Baio did, if you even remember who Scott Baio is. Andy Baio, who is, let's see. Oh, look, he's the poster formerly known as, this is amazing. I can't believe I have to say these things out loud. Wax Pancake. I don't know anything about that. I make waxy.org and xoxofest.com. Any of you guys familiar? A very online-ish kind of guy. Helped build Kickstarter. That's something I understand. And Andy Baio says that in his latest video, not his latest video, but the latest video from Hank Green, who is another guy who totally knows things and is, as he says, longtime internet guy. Hank Green made a YouTube video talking about a phenomenon that you may have noticed here. LLM, that is large language model, AI. AI-driven bots programmed to relentlessly disagree with anyone and everyone. A really interesting video that is put up here. And I think there's maybe an accompanying print piece of some kind that I parked, or maybe it was the video. Hopefully there's a little bit more to it than just the video, because can I play you the video? Does that really make any sense? But this, let's see if there's more. This is going to be very weird, I guess, is the first screen's caption here on this YouTube video. Who is creating the non-human army? And I guess it is just a link to the video. And I can't tell, is this the whole thing, just 57 seconds, or is this ad that comes on first, 57? Let's see. I'm going to play it on my non-broadcast thing. Yeah. Oh, no, it's a 15-minute thing. So, but yeah, this very interesting exposition, which I guess I can't just play it, but I'll I'll send you the link, and you maybe want to take a look at it yourself. But he's explaining this whole creation of a bot army of disagreement bots that are meant to like erase your life by making you engage in a pointless debate, which would have been pointless had there been a live person on the other end, but there's not even that going on. So anyway, I just think you should be aware of that. And to get back to the real news here, this Biden commutation of federal death sentences is really a prime target for these kind of bots. So if you find yourself like saying, I can't believe that there's a person out there that really thinks this about the federal death penalty commutation, you might pause for a second and say, you know what? You might be right. You shouldn't believe that there is such a person. There are such people, but you should be aware that you might not be wasting your time with one of them. You might be wasting your time with a bot. I just thought that was an interesting thing. You should take a look at this video and see more about it. I'll see whether there's a print piece at some point that we can share with you. Though that does remind me that there is a piece that is in The Guardian. The Guardian has picked up the torch here and marching forward with something that we started with at one point, stopped in the middle because it's such a long tail, but still clearly very important because it's being reported on again. Curtis Yarvin and his weird relationship with the weirdos who are going to run your government starting in about 4 weeks. Their version of it begins this way. He's anti-democracy and pro-Trump. The obscure, quote, dark enlightenment, unquote, blogger influencing the next U.S. administration. Key figures, the subheader says, in the incoming administration follow Curtis Yarvin, who's pushing for an autocratic takeover of the U.S. If you were wondering, why is everybody all of a sudden on board with anti-democracy, autocracy? And the answer is, there's a weirdo nerd who says that this would be a good thing. So there you go. That's really kind of where we stand with this. Jason Wilson has done the reporting here. And again, the real challenge is to cram it into digestible written format, because every other attempt at it, really chronicling where he's coming from and the crazy ass things he's said and putting it to you in ways that will make you say, why is this happening? Takes a very long time. Even this one does. But because it's new, we have a hook here to try and head down this road again. Curtis Yarvin is hardly a household name in U.S. politics, though we have mentioned him, as I said. But the neo-reactionary, and that's in quotes, that's what he calls himself, neo-reactionary thinker and far-right blogger is emerging as a serious intellectual influence, and that's problematic. I'm sure he's very smart, but no one should be taking him seriously, and yet people are, so now we're forced to too. Emerging as a serious intellectual influence on key figures in Donald Trump's upcoming administration, in particular over potential threats to U.S. democracy. Yarvin, who considers liberal democracy as a decadent enemy to be dismantled, like Stalin, is intellectually influential on Vice President-elect J.D. Vance and close to several proposed Trump appointees, like Stalin, like Hitler, like all sorts of people. The aftermath of Trump's election victory has seen actions and rhetoric from Trump and his lieutenants that closely resemble Yarvin's public proposals for taking autocratic power in America. And there's probably some overlap here between things that are being said on, the intellectual dark web, oh my God, or pronouncements by people like, let's say Donald Trump and maybe others that just don't make sense to normies. I don't know that there's an overlap between why is he saying we got to take over Greenland, Panama, and Canada all at once, all of a sudden. Like, he's not done any of the connective tissue here. And by the way, and if you're going to take over those countries or territories or what have you with military force, like you're actually going to do that and you're going to get people killed in order to do it, you kind of have to make the case at some point to the American people, or they're not going to understand why we're involved in these things. I don't know if it's Yarvin that's behind any of those things, but the point is, at some point, we're going to want to try and figure out where is the weirdness coming from, and I don't know. I mean, maybe it's better if we don't explain it so that people just think it's flat out weird and reject it when they hear about it? Okay. Trump's legal moves against critics in the media, Elon Musk's promises to pare government spending to the bone, and deployment of the MAGA base against Republican lawmakers who have criticized controversial nominees like Pete Hegseth are among the measures that resemble elements of Yarvin's strategy for displacing liberal democracy in the U.S. Hey, let's not do that. One of the venues in which Yarvin has articulated the strategy includes a podcast hosted by Michael Anton. Anyone? A writer, an academic, apparently, whom Trump last week appointed to work in a senior role under Secretary of State nominee Marco Rubio. Although Yarvin once described Vance as a, quote, random normie politician I've barely even met, unquote, in a July Substack post, in October, The Verge reported that, quote, no one online has shaped Vance's thinking more, unquote. The growing parallels between the incoming administration's actions, especially Vance's views, and Yarvin's suggestions raise questions about his influence. Robert Evans, an extremism researcher and the host of the podcast Behind the Bastards, recorded a 2-part series on Yarvin. He didn't fall out of a coconut tree. Oh, how do you like that? That's not fair. He emerged into a right-wing media space where they had been talking about the evils of liberal media and corrupt academic institutions for decades, he said. He has influenced a lot of people in the incoming administration and a lot of other influential people on the right, but a lot of the stuff he advocates is in the same windmills Republicans have been tilting at for a while, Evans continued. What's unique is his way of rebranding or repackaging old reactionary ideas in a way that appealed to libertarian-minded kids in the tech industry and in eventually getting some of them to embrace a lot of far-right ideas, he said. That's the novelty of Yarvin, and that's his real accomplishment. Interesting. And we've heard about, the extremism algorithms that are just making people see crazier and crazier videos as they spend more and more of their time on YouTube or TikTok or what have you. But I guess for the bigger readers, sinking further and further into the depths of actual, longer form blogging, I guess that's happening too. And I guess this is sort of a piece where the light version of this, I suppose, is I guess what's being referred to, or a terminology that's actually being revived, apparently, from an earlier use of it, something like 20 years ago, of crunchy conservatives, crunchy, like Republican conservatives, adopting what used to be sort of viewed as liberal hippy-dippy lifestyle stuff, but with a conservative mindset. I guess I would maybe clear up that comparison this way. There are hippy-dippy commune types who, we're going to, live on a farm, man, and grow our own organic food and, tune in and turn on and drop out or whatever the hell, tune out. I don't know what the saying was, but you get the idea. We're going to raise our own food and make our own organic granola and yada, yada. Well, so that sounds like extremely non-conservative, but then the conservative version of it, I guess repackaging it so that it can be manly enough. These are survivalists. We're going to drop out of society and go off grid and raise our own food and build underground bunkers. Slightly different, but in the meantime, they're also all about training for an upcoming war, so we don't want to put any of these poisons in our body. And so health and wellness has shifted from liberal hippy-dippy, sort of subtly over toward, and then outright over toward, far-right, hard-right authoritarianism. And lots of people have been writing about the transition pipeline that wellness mom bloggers who, fell into anti-vax theory and then who fell into anti-liberal democracy political theory and brought people along with them. It's a weird pipeline, and Yarvin is part of it and is using the same dynamics. And I guess he falls in between that stuff and the Steve Bannon plan to use gaming and Gamergate and gaming communications channels to reach the isolated and angry incel gamer types and move them toward the right as well. And by the way, Brian Beutler had an interesting piece on this topic over the weekend too. So we could make it a big theme. But, there is other news to get to. All right, we're about to take our third break, so you see what's coming up on the other side of the third break. More Curtis Yarvin. What's happening here? All right, well, we'll get back to, we'll introduce the next section here before we take off for the break. A Form of One-Man Rule is the name of the next section. Anton and Yarvin's May 2021 conversation on the podcast, remember, was recorded for the podcast of The American Mind, a publication of the powerful right-wing Claremont Institute. Does everybody remember the Claremont Institute? Where Anton is a senior fellow and whose growing influence in the Trump era has seen it described as the nerve center of the American right. Claremont Institute was also the home base, John Eastman and others involved in the insurrection, of course. On December 8th, Trump's transition team announced that Anton would be appointed Director of Policy Planning at the State Department. So that'll be the title that he takes. I wonder if that's important. It sounds like it. And if he doesn't like democracy, that sucks for the State Department. Hi, everybody. It's me, David Waldman. Yes, the same guy who interrupts you all the time. Interrupting you one more time just to tell you again, another reminder that your contributions are what keep this show on the air, and Patreon.com, Patreon.com, is still among the easiest ways to make the sustaining subscription donations that keep us afloat. Are you ready for the pep talk about how our Patreon campaign is still going strong and growing? Well, too bad. Yeah, the plain fact is we actually are headed in the wrong direction, and whereas we once had about 175 monthly patrons, we're now actually down below 150. Time to recruit some more. Not exactly the kind of news I wanted to share, but there it is. For those of you in a position to support the show, Patreon.com does make it easy to make those secure, recurring monthly contributions to do so. Patreon.com/KagroX gets you straight to our donation page. We've been through a lot together. The worst of the pandemic, we hope. The worst of the insurrection, we hope. So go ahead and treat yourself. You don't need an excuse. Give yourself the gift of a little something you enjoy in life. Support the show. And of course, if you happen to prefer using PayPal or even the Square Cash app, we're up and running on those options too. So thanks again, everyone, for all your support. We couldn't, or at least shouldn't, do it without you. Hope you'll be on board soon too. Thanks for all your support. All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. I will rejoin the Curtis Yarvin story here, although a lot of other things that we need to probably pay some attention to. Well, we got a week ahead of us, don't we? All right, so let's get through it. We were reading that this other wacko, Michael Anton, is that right, will be Director of Policy Planning at the State Department, or at least that's the plan so far. Anton also served in a communications role in Trump's first term at National Security Council from February 2017 until April 2018, resigning the day before neoconservative John Bolton assumed the role of National Security Advisor. I'm sure he thought he would be booted out by Bolton eventually, so jump ship immediately. After leaving the first Trump administration, Anton did not abandon Trump, but continued writing about U.S. liberal democracy in bleak terms. In Up From Conservatism, a 2023 anthology of essays edited by the executive director of Claremont's Center for the American Way of Life, except we hate democracy, so why are you a Center for the American Way of Life? Arthur Milikh, M-I-L-I-K-H. Anton wrote that, quote, the United States peaked around 1965. Geez, what was happening in 1965 that would have been a turning point? I wonder about that. And that Americans are ruled by, quote, a network of unelected bureaucrats like me. Corporate this is interesting. Corporate tech finance senior management. Yeah, well, we are ruled by them. Experts, quote unquote, I guess it says. Experts who set the boundaries of acceptable opinion and media figures who police those boundaries. In other words, these are nerds floundering at the edges with stupid ideas that are rightly rejected by a majority because the majority was raised in liberal democracy and they like voting for things and controlling their own destiny. That, by extension, has meant these weirdo loser nerds are excluded from serious consideration, but they want very badly to be taken seriously. And so the obvious answer, rather than, well, maybe you should consider some serious issues or consider them in a serious light. Instead, they say, what if we tore down the entire thing and made ourselves the cool guys, and then we would put other people at the fringes and exclude them? But that doesn't sound very attractive. So what if we said it was about free speech, man? Except that our eventual plans are to exclude the speech of other people and turn them into excluded nerds. But that would be a less popular platform. So instead they say, no, we're post-democracy. We're very serious thinkers. You don't understand us because of how serious we are, as opposed to how weird and out of touch we actually are and how much we hate the American system at bottom but won't admit it. All right. Anton continued the discussion in sections headed, "The universities have become evil. Our economy is fake. The people are corrupt. Our civilization has lost the will to live." I can't imagine reading those headings and saying, I should continue reading this thing. This will be interesting. His and Yarvin's conversation was ostensibly about his 2020 book, The Stakes. Oh, he knows what the stakes are. You idiots don't know what's at stake. Only I know what's at stake. For instance, I know that universities have become evil, and our economy is fake, and people are corrupt, and our civilization has lost the will to live. I don't know how you get people to take this stuff seriously. And when other weirdos take it seriously, and then you say, you should be president or vice president or undersecretary of whatever the hell this thing is, well, it's a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy, isn't it? Anyway, okay, so his and Yarvin's conversation was ostensibly about his 2020 book, The Stakes. That book was controversial even on the right for its prolonged consideration of, remember this, autocratic Caesarism, remember Red Caesarism, as a means of resolving American decadence. In the book, he defined Caesarism as a, quote, form of one-man rule, halfway between monarchy and tyranny. No, it's just tyranny. Why is it halfway? Because I need it to be a novel concept so that you can point at me and say I'm a serious thinker. Caesarism is tyranny. It's not halfway between monarchy and tyranny. Anyway, he adds, though, that Caesarism is not tyranny, which is wrong because it is tyranny, which strictly understood. This is actually, tyranny, blah, 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 blah. By definition, the Merriam-Webster dictionary. Oh, one of you serious guys who reads the Merriam-Webster dictionary, are you? Caesarism is not tyranny, which strictly understood is a regime that usurps a legitimate and functioning government. Whereas Caesarism implements authoritarian one-man rule partially legitimized by necessity. That is, the breakdown of Republican constitutional rule, adding that a nation no longer capable of ruling itself must yet be ruled. And it might as well be me who does it. What do you know? What a strange coincidence. He wrote that a red Caesar could be attractive to the Reds in the Republican coalition, not the Reds in the Communist coalition, who he says are under constant rhetorical, political, and increasingly physical attack, especially in the blue states. Ah, yes, it is the Proud Boys who are the victims here, as you know, making them more likely to turn to a Caesar. In other words, another version of, you made me a Nazi by telling me that I had bad positions and they were very Nazi-like. Oh, I see. So if you're going to be accusing me of being a Nazi, I might as well just be a Nazi. That'll learn you. Anton stops short of openly calling for authoritarian rule, but in general he writes that the advantages of Caesarism include continuity and stability, and the prospect of avoiding conflict, and that it, quote, tends to engender calm, except in the Ceausescu scenario, I guess. But anyway, okay, sure. But this is him trying to be, well, Aren't you saying that you're for violent overthrow? Well, no. Don't misunderstand me. I stopped short of calling for authoritarian rule. No, you didn't. But I'd like to say I did so that you can't pin that on me. Oh, I get it. All right. Well, next section. This is what we're going to do. And I guess we're being told. Yarvin, back to Yarvin, is the originator of the neo-reactionary or, quote, dark enlightenment movement. It's stupid and dumb and dark, true. But if I put enlightenment on there, then there's every possibility that you will just say, oh, maybe they're too intellectual for me and I'm not on their level. That's why I don't understand why they want to have tyranny. Well, anyway, his early ideas that he developed on a blog called Unqualified Reservations. Oh, that's so intellectual sounding. In 2007 and 2008, under the pseudonym Mencius Moldbug, because everybody wants to, live under the tyrannical rule of a D&D nerd, he now writes a Substack newsletter, that's how serious he is, under his own name. And the far-right imprint Passage Publishing recently published an anthology of his earlier writing. I've got an anthology of my earlier writing and blog posts, but nobody wants to print it and pretend that this is a serious political philosophy for some strange reason. I don't know what it is. The Guardian previously reported that Passage Publishing's founder is Jonathan Keeperman, a former UC Irvine lecturer who had previously operated under the pseudonym Lomez with a 3 instead of the E. LOM3Z. Okay, because now I got a dumb pseudonym too. But I abandoned it a long time ago. I was told, if you want to be taken seriously, you kind of have to do it, as a real name, even though that's not actually true either, as it turns out. You can be Mencius Moldbug for a long time, but he, too, eventually changed to a real name. For years, Yarvin has consistently held to a number of explicitly anti-democratic beliefs. Republican self-government has already ended. Real power is exercised oligarchically in a small number of prestigious academic and media institutions that he calls the cathedral. He's got a name for it, like security moms. So now you got to have a book. And a sclerotic democracy should be replaced by a strict hierarchy headed by a single person whose role is that of a monarch or CEO, and maybe should be very nerdy and everybody should be forced to reproduce with that person. I would think is probably part of this as well. That's where it's going. He also thinks that current liberal democracy contains the seeds of its own destruction. Everything contains the seeds of its own destruction, pal. That's nothing new. He also thinks that current liberal democracy contains the seeds of its own destruction, and he wanted to say it twice, apparently. No, I did. As J.D. Vance put it in a 2021 podcast interview with right influencer Jack Murphy, and again, right here, it's presented as normal and reasonable for this to be happening, but J.D. Vance is a no one and a bit of a squishy weirdo himself, and he's on a podcast with a squishy weirdo, but he's wearing a suit in the picture that they used to illustrate the piece, and of course he's vice president-elect, unfortunately, as well, so I guess we're meant to think that this is a normal thing, that in a 2021 podcast interview with far-right influencer Jack Murphy, who, where, what podcast? What happened to normal news? Nothing. I don't know. Everybody does this now, don't you know? That's what they're saying, even among Democrats. Well, we should be on Hot Ones. Anyway, there's this guy, Curtis Yarvin, who's written about some of these things. I've written about some things too. No one ever does this about what I say. One time CNN did write an article after the fact about the nuclear option. Thank you. I do appreciate that. But yeah, no taking me seriously, apparently. Not that I really want this job, but it's amazing what these, like weirdos can do for themselves. It's not even like, he's photogenic and can trade on that. No. Anyway, there's this guy, Curtis Yarvin, who's written about some of these things. One has to, by the way, in case you were thinking this was not intellectual enough for you, one has to basically accept that the whole thing is going to fall in on itself. Well, that's actually a big thing to accept, but, if you put it that way, I don't know why that's actually any more attractive. It isn't. Vance added, the task of conservatives right now is to preserve as much as can be preserved, and then when the inevitable collapse comes, you build back the country in a way that's actually better. That's not actually conservative, but okay. In 2022, Vox called Yarvin the, quote, person who's spent the most time gaming out how exactly the U.S. government could be toppled and replaced. Actually, that would be Vladimir Putin, probably, but okay. Yarvin suggests that a would-be American autocrat should campaign on and win an electoral mandate for an authoritarian program, which is why he's running around, Trump, that is, saying that he's won an electoral mandate. They should purge the federal bureaucracy and push, in a push, Yarvin has anagrammed, remember this, rage. Anagrammed rage. Remember rage for retire all government employees? I mean, he's a sputtering lunatic. But, actually, some of the most brilliant political minds that are contemporaneously dismissed as sputtering lunatics. Yeah, true. But then, as it turned out, their writing had some coherence posthumously. And you're not dead yet, but I don't see any coherence coming anytime soon. But I guess it would be. I guess if you establish a new neo-reactionary Red Caesar state, you can write the history any way you want, and maybe that's what he's after. All right. They should simply, he says, ignore any court rulings that seek to constrain them. They should bring Congress to heel, in part by mobilizing their populist base against recalcitrant lawmakers. And liberal or mainstream media organizations and universities should be summarily closed. I mean, he's got a program here, but I have a program too. Put Curtis Yarvin through a hamburger grinder. That's my program. And I think it would be good for America, and it probably would be, too. Yargle, bargle, neo-reactionary, light, dark, half-calf enlightenment, I call it. I don't know. Macchiato enlightenment. I don't know. Macchiato. Sorry. I got it wrong. Oh, I used the wrong terminology. This guy's nuts. Whatever. Anyway, so that's it. And we're just supposed to let's read on. Oh, I think we should close all universities and everybody should be killed in the government and there should be no government employees. And then ask me, Curtis Yarvin, how to rebuild American government after that. And I will tell you. And you're like, this guy, looks like a chess club reject. Why am I listening to him? It's not necessarily what he looks like that matters, but he's crazy and he looks the part of crazy. Like all my sensors are going off. Crazy asshole, crazy asshole. Don't listen to this guy. But unfortunately, there's a whole major faction of the Republican Party who's like, tell me more. Fascinating. Anyway, given the post-election period and Trump's preparation for a return to the White House, Yarvin's program seems less fanciful than it did in 2021 when he laid it out for Anton. I guess there's one parallel between the two of us. That's not the way it works. Or where's my, here we go.
That is not how this works!
That is not how this works, Curtis Yarvin. And then yet all of a sudden it ends up being, what they're doing anyway. I guess that's the only parallel between me and him. Like, you can change the way the filibuster works in the Senate with a simple majority vote.
That is not how this works!
Actually, it is how it works, and you can do it. Try it. Don't worry about it. You've actually done it before, and then they found out, oh, yeah. So then maybe that's the only parallel between the two of us. But anyway, there's probably more. Let's see. So Yarvin's program seems less fanciful in 2021 than when he laid it out for Anton. In the recording of that podcast, Yarvin offers a condensed presentation of his program, which he has laid out on Substack and in other venues. Who cares? That doesn't make it any better. Midway through their conversation, Anton says to Yarvin, "You're essentially advocating for someone to age-old move, gain power lawfully through an election, and then exercise it unlawfully," adding, "What do you think the actual chances of that happening are?" And saying in a very NPR sort of way. Yarvin responded, "It wouldn't be unlawful," adding, "You'd simply declare a state of emergency in your inaugural address." Yarvin continued, "You'd actually have a mandate to do this. Where would that mandate come from? It would come from basically running on it, saying, hey, this is what we're going to do." On that part, he's actually done. Throughout the 2024 campaign, Trump promised to carry out a wide array of anti-democratic or authoritarian moves and effectively ran on these promises. Trump has suggested he might declare a state of emergency in response to America's immigration crisis. I mean, the parallels are pretty clear. I mean, it doesn't really help anything, but I guess, you might stop and say, well, declaring it ahead of time doesn't actually make it legal. So, sorry. But, then again, if the SCOTUS eventually says, yeah, it is. I mean, if they decided that coming out and saying, if you show up at a bank, I'm about to rob you, I'm just declaring that, and then you rob them. If the SCOTUS says that's not illegal, then I guess we're stuck with that. But, and that would, by the way, that would be about the only thing that would convince me that Yarvin had anything going on here. Like, hey, maybe this whole regime is collapsing after all. Because it doesn't make any goddamn sense to, the Constitution was not supposed to be a suicide pact. And now it turns out it is one. That's not great. Well, anyway, Yarvin says it wouldn't be unlawful because you say so ahead of time. Throughout the 2024 campaign, Trump did exactly that. Trump also promised to pursue retribution, even though that's the wrong word for it, on individually named antagonists like Representative Nancy Pelosi and Senator-elect Adam Schiff, and spoke more broadly about dispatching the U.S. military to deal with the enemy within. Later in the recording, Yarvin said that after a hypothetical authoritarian president, hypothetical, come on, 2021, what hypothetical are we talking about? It's Trump. But after this hypothetical authoritarian president was inaugurated in January, you can't continue to have a Harvard or a New York Times passed since perhaps the start of April. I don't even know what that's supposed to mean. I see. By April, they'll be eliminated. Because it's necessary. Why? Because, I don't know, Curtis Yarvin said it was necessary. Later expanding on the idea, if that is an idea, with, quote, the idea that you're going to be a Caesar and take power and operate with someone else's department of reality in operation is just manifestly absurd. That's what's manifestly absurd. I see. And by the way, manifestly absurd makes you sound so intellectual. Machiavelli could tell you right away that's a stupid idea, Yarvin added. No, he couldn't. He's dead. You're wrong about that, sir. While he has not yet assumed power, Trump has moved against media outlets, commencing lawsuits against some, including the Des Moines Register, CBS, and ABC. It's an odd crew, but there you go. With the latter settling a $15 million suit that legal experts believe will be winnable for the believed anyway to be winnable for the broadcaster. Vice President-elect J.D. Vance, meanwhile, and others in the broader MAGA orbit, like Christopher Rufo, have identified universities as primary ideological enemies, with Rufo helping remake New College of Florida in the image of Christian nationalism. And as destructive as that was of the New College of Florida, that's not exactly erasing Harvard. In 2022, Vance told Vanity Fair, quote, I tend to think that we should seize the institutions of the left and turn them against the left. We need a de-Bathification program, a de-wokeification program. Very scary sounding. Does he know how to do it? I don't know. The Guardian reported in August that Vance said in a podcast recording, there is no way for a conservative to accomplish our vision of society unless we're willing to strike at the heart of the beast. That's the universities. Yar. Elsewhere in the podcast with Anton, Yarvin talked of the need to mobilize the base of the party, its ordinary supporters, ordinary people, you, not intellectuals like me, in the service of the cause. Yarvin postulated this could be done with an app that supporters would download and take instructions from when opponents were identified. Now, they already have that app. Lips of TikTok will tell you who the enemy is. But a new thing, I don't know how it'll work, but it'll have an app. So therefore, take me seriously. Yarvin said the notional U.S. autocrat would use the app to recreate the Sons of Liberty style, quote unquote, protest, he said. Now he'll just name enemies on Truth Social and people will, take matters into their own hands. They might get killed, Sons of Liberty style, but maybe not. The Sons of Liberty is a name for underground cadres who pushed back on British rule, is the Guardian, remember, in the lead up to the American Revolution. One historian wrote that the methods amounted to mob terror, and they did. Although no Trump app exists that parallels the one Yarvin postulates, the pro-Trump social media apparatus has already directed the MAGA's base's ire against Republican lawmaker Joni Ernst, in a self-identified sexual assault survivor who expressed skepticism about the nomination of Pete Hegseth, who has recently been accused of sexual misconduct. In a story on Ernst's background earlier this month, the New York Times reported that her shift suggests that Mr. Trump's MAGA base was ready, willing, and able to bully Republicans into submitting to his desires. And I understand there's already, I thought it was Ernst who had already drawn a primary challenger for the 2026 election, I guess. Yarvin's recommendations for a president in power were for the sharp and sudden concentration of police powers. That's easy enough to get to. Essentially, you have to be willing to say, okay, when we have this regime change, we have a period of temporary uncertainty, which has to be resolved in an extremely peaceful way. Yeah, you can't accuse me of violence. It's going to be extremely peaceful. What that means is basically a state of emergency in the White House, he said. It means the president is basically taking direct control over all law enforcement authorities, a state of emergency in basically every state, he added. In September, on the campaign trail, Trump said that, quote, one real tough, nasty, and violent day of unrestrained policing would end crime immediately. One rough hour, and I mean real rough. The word will get out and it'll all end immediately. You know, it will end immediately, Trump added. Okay. And by the way, during that hour, somebody make sure to put Curtis Yarvin through a meat grinder. Wood chipper will do as well. But am I calling for violence? Oh, absolutely not. I'm stopping short of that. How do I know I am? Because I quote myself saying that I did it. One might even quote oneself in saying it to make it sound super intellectual and therefore A-okay. All right. Just saying he's out there and still exists. And okay, at least we got through a shorter form version of it. But yeah, it disturbs me as it should disturb you just a little bit. All right. Also, weekend news. I guess we really have to get that one out there. The New York Times has reported in the person of Charlie Savage that Clarence Thomas is still super duper corrupt. And gosh, I can't believe it. He's got a little touch, I guess, of the K. Granger in him. He just keeps forgetting to disclose more and more trips paid for by billionaires. Justice Thomas, the headline says, did not disclose additional trips, Democrats say. Oh, and so does objective reality, but the Democrats are the only ones willing to actually say it aloud, apparently. So, yes, you depend on Democrats saying it. The revelation was included in a report by Democratic staff members of the Senate Judiciary Committee. By the way, Democrats are in the majority of the Senate at the moment and in majority control of the Senate Judiciary Committee. So guess who has actually said this? The Senate Judiciary Committee. So why isn't it said that way? Because reasons. These staffers, apparently, representing the Senate Judiciary Committee, had conducted a 20-month investigation into ethics practices at the Supreme Court because, of course, we're constantly being disappointed by the ethics as exercised by Republican-appointed members of the Supreme Court. So here's what Charlie Savage has to say. Justice Clarence Thomas failed once again to disclose 2 additional trips from a billionaire patron that had not previously come to light, amazingly enough, because we've revealed like dozens of them. Senate Democrats revealed on Saturday after conducting a 20-month investigation into ethics practices at the Supreme Court. The findings were part of a 93-page report released by Democratic staff members at the Judiciary Committee, along with about 800 pages of documents. It said the 2 trips, both of which had been previously unknown to the public, took place in 2021. You know, ancient history. And were provided by Harlan Crow, a real estate magnate in Texas and a frequent patron of Justice Thomas's. One trip took place that July by private jet from Nebraska to Saranac, New York, where Justice Thomas stayed at Mr. Crow's upstate retreat for 5 days. The other came in October when Mr. Crow hosted Justice Thomas overnight in New York on his yacht after flying him from D.C. to New Jersey for the dedication of a statue. And it's linked here. What's this statue? Is sort of curious. The report on it is in jerseycatholic.org, so I'm getting some sense of what this might be about. Beloved Franciscan sister, a longtime mentor of Justice Thomas, honored with the New Jersey Cemetery statue. That's a nice event to go up for, but you could take the train or drive your RV if you wanted to, but instead, private jet was the way to go. D.C. to New Jersey. I mean, that's a 4-hour drive, but let's do it on private jet. The disclosures were one of the few new revelations in a report that otherwise largely summarized information about largesse accepted by the justices and failures to disclose it that had already become public. Justice Thomas had not disclosed the trips even after refiling some of his past financial forms. Well, has your memory been jogged? Can you please write these things down? We know you're guilty. You might as well just say that they are what the things are now. And he just stopped short of that one as well. And the committee learned about them after threatening to issue a subpoena to Mr. Crow, the report said. So that's how they shook that loose. Interesting. In a statement after the report became public on Saturday, Michael Zona, spokesman for Mr. Crow, emphasized that his client had turned over the information voluntarily and denounced the inquiry as political, partisan, and unconstitutional from the start. How is it unconstitutional? I don't know. I don't really have anything for you on that, but we're saying it anyway. In a posting on X on Saturday, Mark Paoletta, a friend of Justice Thomas's, dismissed the report as, quote, pathetic. I mean, the contents are, but Paoletta, former top lawyer for the White House Budget Office in the last Trump administration, and set to repeat that role in the next one, has offered public defenses of the justice amid scrutiny of his ties to Mr. Crow, but I can imagine that we don't care a great deal about what those defenses are. The committee did issue a subpoena to Leonard Leo, a conservative power broker who had helped organize a fishing trip to a remote part of Alaska for Justice Samuel Alito, with, again, private jet travel provided by a billionaire hedge fund manager. Justice Alito has not disclosed that trip and later said he was not required to by the rules as they then existed. Mr. Leo has refused to comply with the subpoena, and the appendix included a letter from his lawyer calling it unlawful and politically motivated, a portrayal the Democrats rejected. How do you like that? Okay, by the way, also in the report, some allegations that Justice Antonin Scalia, of course, dead in 2016, also accepting numerous unreported billionaire-funded trips, including the one on which he died. So watch out for that, I guess. Is there still hope that some of these other guys will die on one of their trips? Maybe, maybe not. All right. Well, very interesting just to know that they're being given the opportunity to clear up the record and still failing to do so. And once again, that these are all just 100% lifestyle enhancements for these people. The idea that you had to get from D.C. to New Jersey by private jet is ludicrous, especially a guy who says he likes to camp out in Walmart parking lots. Anyway, plenty more to cover where that came from, and part of a week anyway left to do it.
You have been listening to Kagro in the Morning with David Waldman.
All right, well, time to hand things over to Justice Button for the West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, which I imagine is on tap today. Yeah, I've probably forgotten to press the button that will give us the preview for it, but come on, I think you have a pretty good idea what he's going to be covering. The question is, what is his schedule going to be like during this holiday week? And maybe we can answer that for you. Maybe he'll answer it next. We'll see you tomorrow.